Hello, my name is Dr. Neil Benson, and today we're here to talk about nutrition. To get an overview of nutrition, we must understand the characters that are involved. And fortunately, I have some diagrams here that can hopefully bring that together for you. I think we've probably all seen a diagram like this. It's a view of the anatomical body in which you've got the mouth and you've got the anus and you've got the bits and pieces in between. It's a bit complicated, so we've gone to a simplified version here, and what we've got is the beginning of this area, which is actually about 8.5 meters in length, but it's been shortened. The bowel is divided into different regions, but basically you've got the mouth and the esophagus. It takes it to the stomach, and the stomach then delivers it to the small bowel, which has been greatly reduced here. It's normally about 7 meters. And it then goes to this dotted line area, which is the large bowel, which really looks more like that. You've got the appendix at the start of it, and you've got the anus at the end of it. So we have simplified it yet again, and we can go from that diagram to a diagram like this, which represents the bowel as being a tube. That really is correct, because if you were to open up the bowel and drag it out all the 8.5 meters and open up the sphincters, you could actually look right straight through it. And it wouldn't be wrong to draw the bowel as being like that. So you've got the long tube with the body surrounding that. And a better way to think of it is being like a donut. So you've got the body around the center of the donut. The center of the donut is no more in our body than the center of the donut is no more part of the donut than the gut is actually a part of our body. It's an empty space, but it has a function, it has a purpose, and we're going to talk about that now. We're dealing with the bowel, and it's divided into 4 different areas of function. The first area is what we call the esophagus, that is just basically a conduit that allows food to pass from the mouth down into the stomach. The stomach is the storage bag, and it expands when we eat our meals, and it enables the food to then be passed slowly to the digestive component of the bowel, which is what we call the small bowel. It has several different names, but basically it is an area that has huge surface area in it. It's about 7 meters in length, and the surface area allows the food components to be broken down and absorbed into the body. We don't want this area to have bacteria in it, and we have a couple of ways of ensuring that to be the case. The first is that when the stomach has stomach acid in it, which when the stomach expands, the body begins to produce acid. Initially, the components in there are not very acidic, but as time passes, more and more acid gets in there, and that helps to sterilize the food. But the main function of the acid is to sterilize the stomach in between meals. But the food that gets passed through the sphincters, and these sphincters are close-off areas, and you can see you've got a close-off between the esophagus, which as I said was a conduit, and you've got one in the stomach, partitioned at either end, that allows the stomach to hold all the food. And then you've got another sphincter that maintains the individual function of the small bowel, which is for absorption. And the final one is the anal sphincter, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Small bowel we don't want bacteria in there. We want to make sure that it's sterile because we don't want any competition with our body for the food. And as you will find out later, there is a lot of defenses that the body has called Peyer's patches around that. But that's going to be in the later part of the book. So we've got storage in the stomach, we've got digestion, and then we have the large bowel. The large bowel starts at what is known as the ileocolic sphincter, and it extends down to the anal sphincter. So we've compartmentalized that area, which receives essentially sterile fluids from the small bowel. And this area is jam-packed full of bacteria. The bacteria are there for several functions. One is that they produce what are called bacteriocins, which are, think of them as being like antibiotics that help the different bacteria in the gut fight amongst themselves. and some of them are also absorbed into our body and help us fight infections. The bacteria also produce a lot of vitamins for us, and those vitamins are necessary, mostly they're B vitamins, to keep our body healthy and working well. And an area that's of interest at the moment is the area of neurotransmitters. Serotonin and other chemicals are produced by the bowel, and we absorb them into us, and they act as natural antidepressants, making us less anxious and happier. The final benefit is that the large bowel receives quite slushy, liquidy materials from the small bowel, and it allows for the fluids to be absorbed into the body, making the contents of the large bowel much more firm, and hopefully you pass a poo that's a bit like a sausage, and you do that once a day, because that's what normal bowel function is like. I'm just going to talk about the function of the appendix. When I was in medical school, we were told that it was just a vestigial remnant of our evolutionary past. That's not actually the truth. The function of the appendix is to store bacteria. And when this fluid comes from the small bowel, it's essentially sterile, and it needs to have bacteria put into it so that the bacteria can give us the benefits of vitamins and bacteriocins and neurochemicals. So if you were to have diarrhea, diarrhea would force everything that's in your bowel to rush out quickly. By having the appendix here, it means that the appendix doesn't get wiped out by the process of diarrhea, and it's there to recolonize the gut afterwards. And that's actually the reason that we have it. I hope you found this interesting. Thank you.